Today we have a great revenge story about a childish husband. We'll get to that later, but first, someone insulted my guy, so I danced with him. My partner and I were attending a German folk festival, and we were required to perform in one formal dance. I danced for a few years as a teenager, however my boyfriend has very little dancing experience. There was this one guy who was evidently dancing competitively, and after the formal dance he made a harsh remark about how my boyfriend should have practiced some moves first. He did, and he did it well. Naturally, I asked him if he would like to dance with me. He agreed, stating he would be pleased, and that he had always wanted to dance with someone who knew what they were doing. The tango argentino came next, which was fortunate for me because it allows you to get quite near and converse for as long as you like, and I truly wanted. Here are the lines of discussion that I remember. I said, "How long have you been dancing?" He stated, "It's been 4 years. I said, "Really? Oh, okay, but probably not very often." He said, "What? Why?" "No, I go at least once per week." I replied that I just assumed folks become busy with work and life, but you never know. ... And what is your favorite dance? He says, "Tango Argentino is nice, but I think my favorite is." And then I jump in, adding, "Of course not. This isn't it, don't worry. ... You don't have a steady dance partner, do you?" He said, "No, why?" I said, "Just the way you dance. ... Have you considered attempting other sports?" He replied, "No, I really enjoy dancing, why should I?" I answered, "Just asking. I enjoy lifting, for example, and a friend from dancing swears by yoga as a form of cross-training." He responded, "Oh yeah, that actually sounds cool. Maybe I'll think about it, thanks." I said, "No problem, perhaps there is even a sport in which you have inherent skill." The entire dance went like this. After the dance, I thanked him. He thanked me sourly, and I reassured him by patting his hand and saying, "You're welcome. And don't worry. Everyone learns at their own rate." I really hope Op's partner was aware of the plan before Op saddled up and began talking to this guy very closely. I mean, it's a fantastic tale to hear about later, but imagine the Op doesn't explain and then instantly saddles up next to this absolute jackass and does a tango argentino. Matattack007 commented, "I can't image being Op's lover. He tries his hardest to dance with his dancer girlfriend, is insulted by another dancer, and his girlfriend quickly goes to dance with him before returning and saying, 'Oh, don't worry, babe. I insulted him the entire time. Trust me.' I would have left before the song ended." Also, hello, my name is Steven, and if you enjoy excellent revenge stories, I'd appreciate it if you liked or left a review on my podcast. That being said, our following story is titled "Teacher Said No to Bathroom." 4th grade, I asked my teacher if I might use the restroom. The teacher replied no, but I said that I really needed to go and that if I didn't, I would wet myself. The teacher told me to hold it, so I immediately peed myself. I then raised my hand, saying I had peed myself and needed to go home. The teacher literally replied, "Are you joking?" I then stepped up to show the teacher my urine-soaked pants and pee all over the chair, and I said, "No, I'm not kidding." The teacher directed me to the principal's office, where she called my mother to come pick me up. My parents met with the principal about this. That teacher would never deny me a restroom break again. Now, I'm not saying I support the idea of people purposefully soiling themselves, but if I were a parent and my child was going to school, I would tell them, "Hey, if your teacher literally won't let you use the restroom, do you want to try to change that teacher for the better? Then, in my opinion, you aren't cool unless you pee your pants," as Happy Madison once said. Neorio noted, not a bathroom story, but in 1st grade I wasn't feeling well. School calls Dad, who is rarely home from work abroad, and he comes to me and says she is fine. I promptly vomited on his shoes. "I guess she's not fine. Our next story is, you shouldn't have made me eat that." Another anecdote recently reminded me of my unintentional petty revenge from almost 40 years ago. I was in 4th grade, and it was lunchtime at the cafeteria. I had been away the day before when it was announced that we students were wasting too much food and would henceforth be obliged to eat everything on our trays. So the next day at lunch, I'm walking through the line, and we're supposed to pick a vegetable. Today's choices were beets or carrots. I do not like either. Skipping wasn't an option. I chose carrots. I'm seated at the table, eating everything but the carrots. At the time, our male teacher ate lunch with us every day. He informed me that I had to consume the carrots pursuant to the new rule. I'd never been allowed to dispute with an adult, but I tried everything to avoid it, even telling him they'd make me puke. He said that I had to eat them or go to the principal's office. I was a decent kid, and the concept scared me, so I ate the carrots. Then I bent over and vomited everything in his lap. I was taken to the nurse's office, then home. I returned the next day to find that the new regulation had been removed. I absolutely appreciate being concerned about food waste and ensuring that children do not waste food, but what about pushing children to eat something? I believe that is something that will go nuclear regardless. Jennifer82 remarked, My sister's teacher attempted to get her in trouble for vomiting on her after forcing her to eat everything on her plate. My mother questioned why she compelled her to eat everything when my sister clearly stated that she was finished eating. Insert the Pikachu face from the teacher. My daughter's school has a sharing basket. According to the nutrition program, they are expected to depart with a fruit. But they also have a share basket so that if one child does not want something, another can take it. This eliminates waste since they must discard everything at the end of the day, regardless of whether it was handled. I've seen kids put everything in there from fruit to milk to cheese, and it's generally empty by the end of lunch. Our next story is that my best buddy painted my apartment pink while I was on vacation, so my best friend is a more feminine lady than me, which means she wears a lot of pink, has her hair and nails done, and so on. I am not like this, and pink is not my hue of choice. Anyway, she was looking after my apartment while I was on vacation, and as a joke, she scheduled painters to come in and paint my bedroom pink. She also changed all of my work with pink-themed art, added a pink rug, and some pink decals on the walls. So, cue my petty vengeance. While she was gone, I went into her apartment and made copies of all of her photos, then photoshopped her head to be about 25% larger in each of them, and returned them. It will be a month this week, and she has yet to realize. How often do you look at your own photos, right? So at first sight, everything appears normal, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. She looks like a bobblehead in each one. I'm not sure how long it will take her to notice, but I visit her apartment several times a week, and it makes me laugh every time. I'm slightly conflicted with what Op did here, because I'm curious what happened to all of the original photographs. Wouldn't Op be the jerk if they were covertly hanging on to all of the originals until they figured it out? So what do? Slip the originals under the frame of the revised 25% larger head ones. Rough Principle 3755 said, "This does not even sound like petty revenge, sounds like two buddies who care about each other performing small, harmless pranks." My friend is a real estate agent. For years, I would attend his open houses and smuggle in a small framed picture of him to hang in the house. I made it a point to always go to the busier ones and place it while he was dealing with actual customers. I often joked that I was there to use the restroom. I would get calls from him giggling when a client finally spotted it. Fortunately, his clients found it as amusing as we did. Mostly because it's silly, and some people didn't even notice it until they were packing up their house. The following tale illustrates that sometimes being nice is the greatest way to get even. Houston, Texas is infamous for its terrible traffic while everyone is attempting to leave work. It gets even worse if there is an accident on a major freeway, forcing people to use surface routes. Such an incident occurred as I attempted to leave work and travel to my hotel, which was about 2 miles away. Traffic was crawling due to a serious accident on one of the major interstates, and passengers were being redirected onto alternate routes. I noticed someone attempting to enter the street from a parking lot, but was unable to do so due to traffic congestion. I paused and gave them the space. The lady behind me in a large SUV was completely terrified. She honked, flashed her lights, and waved her arms, and I can only assume what she was screaming was not a compliment to my good character. And she continued doing tiny charges like if she was going to run into me. I let 4 more individuals enter the wait for about a half block. I finally gave in when I grew frightened that her brain may burst. I love a scenario like this when you have nothing to do and nowhere to go, so you can invite folks in and just let someone like this grow so hot that they erupt. Brilliant Egg 3704 said, "This is my favorite thing to do when someone behind me loses their poop. I enjoy being late because of this." A few inches shut us down, and I believe we received more than 40 inches. Everything was closed for days. Everything finally opened up. There was just one route that connected one area to another, and it was bumper to bumper for 9 miles at approximately 20 mph. There were side roadways that crossed this road. When I was approaching any of the roadways, I would let someone in front of me because most people wouldn't let them in. The guy behind me was freaking out about it. At a red light, he got out of his car and approached me. I was frightened he was going to kill me. He yelled, "Are you a freaking Girl Scout?" He then stomped back to his car. Still made me laugh. Our next story is, can you do your schoolwork but not chat to me? I get it. This occurred years ago during my freshman year of high school. I attended a newer STEM-based charter school, thus one of the things we had was programming. Before starting the lesson, I had a solid understanding of the fundamentals of Python. So I had an easier class. Well, because I was at a new school and had never been the popular girl, I didn't want to identify too strongly with the nerd that I am, and instead attempt to be cool. As a result, I began to develop a friendship with our school's gal. We were discussing programming class, and she remarked that the assignment was impossible for her, so I offered to do it for her in order to deepen our connection. I honestly didn't mind for a time. It allowed me to practice stuff I would otherwise have forgotten and offered me new reasons to develop. After a while, we would only talk to make sure I had finished her schoolwork. I suppose she didn't think to log in and check herself? And that was all. So I gradually stopped doing her schoolwork. Her grade suddenly dropped, and she understood it was because she had not completed her assignment, and when she confronted me about it, I was completely honest. Here's where the unintentional revenge occurred. Ironically, the homework program they utilized for our coding class has a severe programming error. If you opened an assignment, didn't input anything, and then clicked continue, it counted as 100%. It wasn't only started or watched, it was fully done and correct. This meant that when the teacher examined, she assumed the program meant to score your code correctly, and simply duplicated the grade. So, in order to balance my and her homework, I simply missed all of her assignments at the end, before I completely stopped doing her homework. One day we were conversing, and I told her about this approach. But I stated I didn't use it very frequently, only on particularly difficult assignments. She wanted to get back at me for not finishing her homework, so she went to the teacher and informed them how some individuals don't do their tasks, and instead just hit continue. So the teacher diligently reviewed all of the students' homework assignments and modified their grades accordingly. Everyone dropped at least one letter grade, including her. She went from what I thought was a C or D to a complete failure. However, my grade did not change. I'm thinking that because my teacher knew I liked coding and had a history in it before attending that high school, there was no need to go over my homework. Chick ended up screwing herself over so badly that she had to repeat the class, while I received an easy A. The next time you want someone to do you a significant favor, attempt to talk to them first. I'm not going to lie if someone is completing my homework in a class that I can't be bothered to do, or I just don't know or am interested enough to put in the effort. I'm going to do my best to keep that person happy and in their good graces. Dependent Compo 259 said, next time, set some boundaries and avoid trying to nurture a purely transactional relationship. She never respected you, despite your best efforts. Our next story is about how I conned my lazy friend into giving me a 10 out of 10 on a school project. My high school friend and I were just reminiscing about this, and since my train is delayed, I thought I would share. Back in school, he and I were asked to collaborate on a geography project about plate tectonics. Friend disliked geography and had a strained relationship with a teacher. In contrast, I excelled at and even enjoyed the topic. I believe this is why my friend chose me as his project partner. After a few days, I realized he hadn't done any work on the project. When I confronted him, he basically replied, "Look, I have no plan of accomplishing anything for this project. Please give me a nice grade. Otherwise, I'd just keep your grade back." Of course, I was annoyed and informed him that this strategy would not work. I've always been an excellent writer, at least in our home tongue, and I had a distinct writing style even as a teenager, so if I accomplished everything on my own, the teacher would notice. Friend did not take this warning seriously and basically dismissed me, telling me to do the entire thing myself. This is where the revenge began. I looked ahead on the school calendar and realized that we had a large economics assignment coming up, at least 3 times larger and more essential than the geography one. I loathed economics and struggled with it, not least because it required little writing. However, Friend did exceptionally well. He was always the entrepreneurial kind, and economics was by far his finest subject. We were members of an 8-person friend group. Friend was my best friend, so I told the other 6 about my plans and persuaded them to form pairs so that Friend would be essentially stuck with me. The day we received the economics homework, Friend was upset to have someone as inept at economics as myself as his partner. Several hours later, it was time for geography class. I had submitted our project the weekend before. As expected, the teacher summoned me out of the classroom to discuss the project. Friend appeared afraid. It turned out we had received an 8.5 out of 10. Not bad for a 1-person task that would normally require 2. The teacher expressed his doubts that I had done all of the work since he knew my writing style. He gave me the opportunity to rat out a friend and give him a 1 out of 10. I stared my teacher dead in the eyes and said, "You've got it completely wrong, sir." Friend was a great assistance during the entire process. We simply decided that I would put everything on paper to keep the writing consistent. You're aware that when it comes to language, I can be a little controlling. The teacher then summoned a buddy and asked him whether what I said was correct. Friend seemed astonished and sorry, but he supported my story, and we both received great grades. After class, my friend hugged me and praised me sincerely for being such a great friend. I wasn't mad anymore, but I wasn't going to let him get away with it either. So I told him, "Easy. Bro, you royally screwed me over with this. The least you could do to compensate me is ensure that we both receive an 8.5 out of 10 on that economics project. Because in case you hadn't noticed, I have no intention of completing that task. I will leave it in your expert hands. I'd only hold you back regardless." Friend looked at me for a second before laughing. He apologized for his behavior and completed the entire economics assignment, which required a lot more work while I sat at home living my best teen life. And he delivered. He gave us a perfect 10 out of 10, which increased my score to a passing grade. If you ask me, there isn't a villain in this story, but some valuable lessons were taught nevertheless. We had a terrific friendship, and I'm glad we can joke about instances like this now. I adore a story that almost everyone can relate to. I believe we've all been in a circumstance where you have to work on a group assignment, and either you or someone else simply refuses to initiate anything. GeekRunner1 commented, "Honestly, this is how it works in the workplace. We rely on each other's strengths to cover each other's weaknesses. I'm glad your pal realized and laughed about it, while still delivering." Our next story is the pettiest of all revenge. My husband and I went to a very busy specialty grocery store over the weekend. The parking lot was busy and crowded. We ended up parking in the rear of the lot. Walking into the business, we saw a young woman in a BMW park half-heartedly and crookedly in the only available handicap parking spot. She has no plaque and appears to be in good health. She is simply entitled. I despise that nonsense. It drives me crazy. So I made it my duty to be in BMW's path throughout the store. I got in front of her with my cart and did my best to predict where she would try to go next. She wanted to get to the berries, and strangely enough, I did as well. And maybe I'd never seen berries before because I inspected several packages of them closely and only moved when I realized she was about to give up and go around. So I ambled along, and it appeared that she was heading toward the bread aisle. So I had to go check out the bread and what's in it anyway. I'd better read all of the components. She kept sighing and smacking her thighs in annoyance, but I didn't notice. She was wedged between me and the people, which was terrific. I kept it up for around 15 minutes until she was able to slip away from behind me. She gave me the dirtiest look as she rushed past me in her cart. I simply gave her a dumb blink stare. "Oh, you were behind me the entire time?" It took about 20 minutes longer than my usual shopping trip, but it was well worth it. That filthy look she gave me will make me smile for weeks to come. Honestly, in this day and age, people like that should go to a store that just offers curbside pickup and do that. Save everybody's time, work, and thoughtfulness. Lowstick6746 said, "I got my best petty revenge at a grocery store. They're ideal sites for it. I was in checkout and it was quite busy. The person in front of me was on his cell phone and chatting really loudly. This was before such behavior was simply viewed as no big deal. He was talking so loudly that everyone looked annoyed. Then I heard him tell whoever he was speaking with that he was at a guy's house playing video games. He is in a friggin' grocery shop. Why would he lie about that?" So I turned to my sister and asked, "Who are you talking to, baby?" Suddenly you hear a female voice yelling at him. "Who the freak is that?" He's immediately racing to explain, having to confess that he's not where he said he was and is actually at a grocery shop. He promptly moved out of line and left. Our next story is about showing off excellent jewelry to the mother-in-law. This isn't something particularly cool or weird, but the delight it caused me is incomparable. My husband's mother is not a good person. I'm the type of person who always sees the good in others, no matter how horrible they are, and I make far too many allowances for poor behavior. For years and years I did this with her, until I finally acknowledged that she is a horrible person at heart. She frequently behaves like a jealous ex-girlfriend toward me and has been a very abusive mother to my husband throughout his childhood and adulthood. She recently asked that my husband send her $200 as a Christmas gift. He declined for the first time, telling her that he didn't have the money and couldn't. He recently upgraded my wedding ring. He gifted me a diamond bracelet for Christmas that year. I washed them both in dish solvent to help them shine and thoroughly polished them just before she arrived for Christmas Eve so they would sparkle enough to blind her. When she arrived, as expected, she observed me dangling that hand over her face frequently and inquired about both. I gave her a better look and raved about both, saying, "Husband got them for me, aren't they lovely?" He couldn't wait to give me the bracelet on Christmas. It's okay, though I still have loads of things from him under the tree to open on Christmas. You raised a beautiful boy, and he spoils me so much. I'm not sure I've ever seen so much rage in her eyes. Op is unironically winning here. They're helping their spouse finally get away from their violent mother, but they're also getting spoiled. Watching telly now, you sliced her with a compliment on our parenting abilities. It'll kill her that she can't respond to your comment. Excellently petty. Excellent retribution. Our next story is you said my buttocks were huge in the green trousers. Enjoy all of the green trousers. Last year, a now former acquaintance made some pretty harsh comments about my buttocks while wearing green trousers. I requested for advice on this in another sub, and you can read the whole story in my profile if you like. The short version is that she abruptly and without explanation advised me to throw away my green trousers because my buttocks were too big for them. A few hours later, she pulled up the long sweater I was wearing that day to see if your buttocks were too big for the ones you're wearing today. It was quite humiliating, and she did it right in front of others, including her husband. That day I was wearing slightly see-through leggings, which is why I had a really long sweater covering my butt. I've now moved on from this and made some new and better pals through the same knitting club. I basically dumped all of my pals from last year and made new ones. I still see my former friends on a weekly basis. Why? Because we belong to the same knitting group, which I became the formal chairwoman of in March. People, particularly my new friends, have observed that I am no longer spending time with this person, that she was quite snarky to me before the March, and that she has subsequently attempted to kiss my butt. Ironic. The vengeance was modest at first, but it gradually improved. Every Tuesday since November, I've worn the exact pair of green trousers she advised me to discard. I keep them washed and ready for wear. Every Tuesday night. A handful of my new close friends were informed about the green trousers and my buttocks being big, and they decided to also wear green trousers every Tuesday, purchasing some in the same shade of green. Because I was the chairwoman, a few people who weren't aware that we were wearing green for knitting began to do so as well. 2 others even made it a point to sew green shorts so they could wear green all summer. So now, every Tuesday this lady must be surrounded by other women wearing green trousers, shorts and skirts, all in the same green color. I'm continually reminded of my fat buttocks, which are also visible in the green trousers. But I thought you might enjoy this petty vengeance, as I hang my trousers to dry so they're ready for tomorrow. Now, I'm not sure about most people, but I believe that in this day and age, being informed that your buttocks appear fat in such trousers would encourage someone to wear those trousers rather than throw them away. Your buttocks seem considerably too fat in those trousers, throw them away. So how about no? Agnes Perdita noted that this is fantastic. Long may you and your beautiful green-trousered buttocks haunt her nightmares. Can I propose crocheting some nice green pillow covers for your club? With a pair of jeans pockets and a large seam running up the center? Also, some extremely long sweaters with a loop on the back hem so that inquisitive individuals with no manners may quickly lift the hem to see if the buttocks beneath exceed acceptable tolerances. Our next story is: take out the chairs after each meal since you can't keep the kids entertained while I prepare your meals. Okay, my spouse and I have 2 children, both on the autistic spectrum. He became irritated about a week ago when our children started moving, tipping over, and playing on our dining room chairs. They are made of plastic and aluminum and are not particularly heavy. Instead of getting off his computer game and guiding them to a more productive activity, he starts yelling at me about how I need to transfer the chairs to the day room, a garage that the previous owner began converting into an additional room but never completed. We use it to store food after each meal. Then becomes unhappy because moving all 4 is tough, and I'd rather move 2 at a time. 2 things to know: he is an avid gamer, and the computer is in a space that doubles as a living room and dining area. I developed my own secret policy. I'll leave the chairs in the house until I need to remove them. If I have to remove the dining room chairs, I'll also have to remove his computer chair. When I bring in the dining room chairs, I don't have to bring in his chair. He got home from work and immediately went to the internet for his evening games, hoping to win a bonus for playing every day for a month. He inquired about the dining room chairs, and I informed him that the children were playing on them when I pulled them out. After a few minutes, he inquires about the location of his chair. I replied that it was also out in the day room. He simply stood there as I walked out of the room, as if he expected me to get it. I did not acquire it, and I want to move it to the day room and leave it there whenever possible. Is this petty? Absolutely. Do I care? No. Is it a little funny? Yes. I can find amusement in simple things like making him acquire his own items rather than expecting me to provide them to him. Yeah, I believe infantile conduct is a nice way to define this individual. He absolutely fits the category of someone who is more preoccupied and concerned about his daily routine than he is with caring for his children and being an involved parent. I suppose almost anyone would explain hearing this story by saying that the solution isn't just to remove the chairs every time the kids tamper with them, it's just convenient for him when it solves his problem, and he doesn't have to move the furniture. Lernis said, who is going to tell her I'm not, because, while I appreciate how overwhelming the issue is for everyone involved, the answer will not be easy. Well, I'm simply going to spit it out as a woman whose ex-husband behaved just as the op scribed. Dude sounds kind of abusive, at least verbally and/or emotionally. Obviously, who knows what's going on behind the scenes, but yes, there are tons of red flags here. Consider this, friend op. If what people are pointing out here resonates with you, you don't have to live that way. At the very least, you and your children do not deserve to be yelled at for such minor issues, or in general. But with that said, that is all the time we have today. If you want to hear another insane vengeance story, check out the video on the left. If you missed my most recent video, check it out on the right. That being stated, I will see you all next time with more stories.